and welcome to Perazim Creative Compass. I'm Sophia Karydis, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by the lovely singer-songwriter and independent R&B artist, Sandra.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Hi, how are you today, Sandra?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fabulous. I'm excited to get into our conversation today, all about your journey as a music artist. Now, take me back to the beginning. Was there a moment, a song, an artist, an experience that really inspired you to get into this industry?
I wouldn't say there was a particular artist or a song. However, when I was growing up, I used to, from as long as I can remember, from videotapes, I used to stand in front of the TV and I used to listen to the concerts that my mom and my dad used to play, and I would dance and I would sing. And ever since then, I've just developed this really big passion for music. And then as I was growing up, it started to feel like in my chaotic life that was the only time things felt at peace a little bit. So whenever I sang, whenever I danced, whenever I was around that, it just felt like everything disappeared. So
that's so beautiful how music really provided peace in your life. And how would you describe your sound? I have listened to a few of your tunes. I'm a big fan, but how would you describe it? Say in 3 words, what would your sound be?
This one's a hard one because I feel like as an artist, sometimes we get this pressure to have one sound and to have this particular genre. I would say that I'm a mix in between R&B, ballad and soul. So that is probably my sound in a nutshell, but I'm very versatile, so I am open to like different genres all the time.
Love that. They're some of my favorite genres too. I feel like with a ballad you can really like pour all your emotions into it. Have you got a favorite ballad song? A favorite ballad?
When I was growing up, I used to listen to a lot of Adele and a lot of Emily Sandé.
Yes.
That was like my thing. But obviously with the R&B, Destiny's Child and like Beyonce. Beyonce used to make quite emotional songs as well. So growing up, I think it was just a mix, hence why it's so mixed with R&B, because I would listen to the old school R&B and then I would have like the ballads and the famous like classic songs, and I would feel I'm in between that.
Girl, I feel you. In terms of Beyonce, I'm part of the Beehive. I'm a big Beyonce fan, and also Rihanna is another like queen of mine. I know it's like pop R&B. I think growing up in did you grow up in London?
Yes, I grew up in London.
I feel like growing up in London, you hear a lot of the R&B sound, and maybe that's. Do you think that's influenced you a little bit in your journey?
Yeah, and also actually, when I was growing up, when I used to watch concerts with my dad, he used to play Anastasia, and I don't know if you know
My
Anastasia.
dad showed me Anastasia as well.
Yeah, so
Left Outside
Anastasia,
Alone.
literally, I fell in love with her, and she actually is in between pop, R&B and rock.
Yes.
And she brought a lot of the classical, like the technicalities into the R&B. She was a massive performer. She still is. I actually saw her this year.
Really?
I went on my own.
Where did you see her?
In London, because my dad really loved her, and my dad was musically inclined, and obviously he passed away. He was never able to proceed and pursue music. So that was one of the biggest reasons why I felt like both of my parents were very creative and my dad never had the chance. So when I grew up listening to people like Anastasia, when I saw that she was in London, I was grabbing that opportunity and I was running with it. I didn't care who came, and it was amazing. I cried like half of the concert because it felt like I was reliving what I was growing up seeing.
And that's so special. Would you say Anastasia is one of the artists that really connects you to your dad?
Yeah, because my dad and I had never had a good relationship, so the only thing that brought me and my dad close is music. And literally whenever I think of any situation where me and him were okay was only when we were listening to like music. It was very music driven. So to relive that, I felt like it healed a part of me seeing her, because it was like, you know, we could have went together, but I now had like, I lived that and I forgave that part of the situation. So it was a beautiful moment and very healing. So definitely there's a massive connection to that.
That is so special, and I'm so glad for you that you were able to have that connection in that moment. And I really rate that you went on your own and you thought, I'm doing this for me, I'm doing this to remember my dad, despite everything. So I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm glad that you found some healing in this process.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about you being an independent artist. So obviously it comes with lots of highs, but also lots of lows. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges about being an independent artist?
Oh, I could be here all day. I think first and foremost, it's very network connection based. The music industry is all who you know, and I think one of the toughest things that you had to face is that the talent is not enough. And you could be the most talented person, you could have the best story, but if you don't know the right people, if you don't know the right connections, if you don't have the right persona, it just doesn't work. And there's so many people that want to do music, and it's so saturated, and it just makes it harder for someone like me to be able to be different. And I think that is one of the toughest challenges, is to understand what is your why and how are you going to show that to the world. Why should other people listen to you? Why out of everyone in this world, it's you that should be like listened to? I could think that I have an amazing story, but it's how I portray that to the world. So that is a tough thing without a team as well. When you're on your own and you're managing yourself, it's a very hard thing. And luckily I studied music management in university, and I'm able to understand certain things and, you know, work a little bit with the knowledge that I know, but it's a lot harder when you're on your own.
I honestly really feel for independent artists nowadays, because I feel like with the landscape of music that we have, it's easier for people to kind of put their music out there, but that means you're competing with so many more artists.
Yes.
And if you don't have, like you said, the connections or the financial backing, because I know it's a lot of like money as well to be getting into the studios, the songwriting, all of it. So I do feel for you guys, but I wanted to ask on that note, what is your why?
My why, it always gets really deep. So like I said, there was a lot of chaos growing up for me, and a lot of people know this because I speak about this freely, but I lost both my parents before the age of 21. So it was one of those things where it's like, if I don't actually do something with myself, I feel like I don't want to say disappointing, but like I owe it to myself to actually go for something that I love. Also the love of God, like I found God when I was like going through a lot. I don't want to go, I always get emotional talking about this because it's like really emotional, but it's like, it's a very big why, because it's like, it's not just one thing. I think it's just being able to speak God's truth in my music, but also being able to showcase people who I am, and just my story, and to say to people, look, you can go through so much and still make it to the other side. That's literally what it is.
I mean, you've literally just like giving me tingles by explaining all of that. Like, I think your parents will 100% be looking down and being so proud of you for like the woman that you are and what you're trying to do with your life. I think it's really hard to be doing this without the support as well.
Yeah.
So you really owe it to yourself to like...
I wasn't meant to cry, and now I'm like crying.
We have some tissues in this place. We'll grab some tissues. Your makeup still looks flawless.
Amazing, that's good.
No, I think your story becomes even more inspiring after hearing that. I think anyone that's trying to pursue music, I put my hat off to them. But the fact that you've got such a strong reason why, and I know your story will be heard. Sandra Slay.
So.
Remember the name, Sandra Slay. Your story will be heard because you deserve it, girl.
I really hope, and you know, it's one of those things that I'm doing this just because you owe it to yourself to you know, God has given you these talents for a reason, and everyone does. And I think where people fail is when they give up. And the moment you give up is when you fail. You don't fail when you try, because there's going to be a lot of no's in this industry, and the biggest thing is to not let those no's determine your failure.
100%. I mean, yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself. I think never giving up, always going for your dreams. And I also think, do you think that having gone through such a traumatic experience at such a young age, do you think it's motivated you even more and realized life is too short to like not do something that you love?
Yeah, because it's scary when you think about it. Like, we get put on this earth, and then it's kind of like, okay, what do we do with ourselves? And I think it has given me a little push. And I think more than anyone, obviously losing my parents so young, you realize you come to play with death quite quickly, and you realize that it doesn't, it's not just a fairy tale, and you do have to understand that you have to go for your dreams, and there's no timing, there's no timeline. People can make it in music or whatever they love by the age of 30, 35. It doesn't really matter, but I think it's good to start, and when you realize that, okay, yes, life is short, so why should I waste any time trying to, but I am sometimes a hypocrite because I do get into my head and I'm not always perfect, and there is times as an artist where you do lose a lot of hope, and that's kind of been my thing recently. I stopped doing music for a little bit. Never really had that consistent play because a lot of people have either messed me around, or there's been a lot of like situations, mental health, everything. It really does come onto you, so you just have to make sure that you just never give up. I think that's what it is, because you can have breaks, you can have times where you don't, not so creative, but just never give up. That is all it is.
That's such an amazing message, and that's leading me on to my next question. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, you've mentioned a lot about your story. I also wanted to ask you, would you consider music as almost a type of therapy for yourself?
Yes. Yes, and I think this is where the ballad and the R&B comes to play, because when you listen to my songs, the most recent one, that Hands Up as well, it's very jumpy, it's very vibey, it's very old school R&B. I love it. It's fun, and I will never stop making that. However, there is something in me that feels like I am called to have a lot more emotion. If you ever see me perform, and hopefully one day you will, I'm a very emotion-driven performer. Anyone that comes to see me and finds out who I am will find out that I'm a very emotion-led performer. So if you see me, you hear me, it's a lot of emotion. And the one thing about the music that I want to make is to bring that emotion, for people to hear me, to feel me. And that does require a little bit more of an emotional song, but I love that. And I love being able to just have that rawness and not overproduce. And this is why people I love Sasha Keebles and like Adele.
I was gonna say
exactly.
Adele, she all her emotions.
And it's not very produced. It's very there's not a lot of instrumental parts,
simple.
and it's not and it's so effective.
100%.
And I think in London it's not very appreciated. I think in London it's either very rap scene or it's like the R&B, but also the poppy side. Everything's very commercial. Everything's if it's not stuck in my head, then or it's so
TikTok songs.
It's very it's very meaningless, and very, not to say that that's meaningless, because we all need songs that are less heavy. I'm just a heavier person, but I think therapy for me is writing the lyrics, writing the songs, but also performing. I forget about everything happening in my life when I perform, and I might have the worst time or the worst day, and then the moment I perform or I'm in the studio, it's I forget about everything. So I guess that's my therapy.
I think that's beautiful.
But also go to therapy. Because I go as well.
Go to therapy. Music is your second outlet. It's your creative outlet and your emotional outlet.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to my next question. When you are writing your music, what comes first? Is it the lyrics? As we've just spoken, you've got a lot of emotion to let out there. Is it the melody, or is it the kind of general feeling and vibe that you're trying to portray?
So I am very big on melody. Melodies for me, so I write usually to a beat, and I find it easier to just write to a beat, because the moment I hear a beat, it comes to me naturally. The lyrics comes to me very naturally too. However, I always struggle with choruses, only because I feel like I go for a stronger impact from the get-go, and then when it comes to the chorus, I'm like, oh, where is it going to
How'd you go up from here?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't start with the chorus. Some artists start with the hooks, with the chorus. I don't. I just kind of go with whatever I feel like. But melody is probably the most, because again, it's very emotion-led. How I write music as well sometimes is I will sing gibberish, literally. I will go and I would make up melodies as I'm going. But as of recently, I found that I'm starting to write a lot more lyrics without a beat behind it.
Okay.
And I'm coming up with things that are just coming into my head, and I'm just voice noting. But the only challenge with that is you need to have a good producer or someone that's going to create your sound, because obviously you're not going off of anything.
Yeah.
So
it's your vision.
yeah, exactly. So it's it's actually kind of it changes, but I am very definitely melody based.
Okay, got that. And finally, for anyone out there that is just starting their journey as an independent artist, what is one piece of advice you wish you'd been given at the start of your journey?
So I kind of touched upon that before. It's the fact that there is going to be a lot of no's. You need to be able to understand that it's not anything against you. And
Don't take it personally.
exactly, and it's not anything to do with, because there's so many careers that you hear no. We as creatives hear a lot of no's before the yes comes, and I had moments where I felt really discouraged, and I felt like I wasn't good enough, and I felt like no one's going to hear me, no one's going to see who I am. And even now, like, I am nowhere near where I would like want to be. And it's the fact that do not start with this perception that you need to be in a certain point at a certain time, because that's going to lead you to measure your success based on the little failures or the little discouragements or the little disappointments. And then you end up seeing yourself, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm not good enough, and I don't want to do this. And then that impacts your writing, that impacts your actual song, the energy that you put out to people, very negative. And I think if I was starting up and somebody just told me, look, do it for the love of music, yes, but also be logical, because you want to do this as a career, but do not let the discouragement and the no's determine whether you're going to continue.
I think that's amazing advice across all creative sectors, to be honest with you, because as creatives, we do hear a lot of no's, and it is really hard not to take it personally. And it's hard to get back up on that horse once you've been knocked down.
Yes,
but I feel like you've got experience and resilience, let's say. So
girl, I'm tired.
a bit too much resilience.
I know.
But for that reason, Sandra, I think your future is going to be so bright.
God willing.
And I really hope you keep motivated and you keep smashing it out, because honestly, you deserve it, and you have a gorgeous voice. And it's been an absolute pleasure to hear your story. Thank you for being so open and honest, and it's been a real privilege to open up today.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly,
And,
like, I just want people to know my story more. I am an oversharer, and I love to overshare, but it's for a reason, because I love it. I will meet you. I will meet you, and I will literally tell you my whole life story. But that's not because I want people to feel sorry for me. I just want people to understand that in life there is going to be things that are going to happen, and with something like music, it's kind of coming here has been a little bit of a motivation for myself to be like, look, you're doing things, like, you are good enough to do this. So thank you
100%.
for having me here and believing in that, to be fair. Thank you.
No, it's been a pleasure. And on that note, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you.